My name is Georgianne Moss, and I'm the Executive Administrator of Sustainability Outreach and Initiatives for the Dallas College. And on behalf of Dallas College, our sustainability team, and our partner and sponsor EarthX, I'd like to welcome Sustainable You to this webinar today. With that, I am delighted to introduce our speaker for today. Our speaker is Karen Cuttle. She is a licensed professional counselor at the Richland College of Dallas College, or Richland campus of Dallas College, where she has worked since 2005. Karen helps students overcome challenges so that they're successful in their educational goals. She is highly engaged on her home campus, as well as actively involved in promoting mental health and wellness across Dallas College. She's often asked to speak on stress management, positivity, and mental well-being. She's passionate about the benefits of community college, building sustainable communities, and the environment. So, Karen, we're so delighted to have you. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, I am absolutely excited to be here. I would love to do more of these in the future, but today we are going to talk about the United Nations Sustainability Goal number 3. If you're familiar with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, there's down here you see them, there's like 1 through 17, and then, you know, the Sustainability Development Goal little logo. So all of these are actually interconnected. And what really interconnects all of these is the human element. And when we look at number 3, the title of it is Good Health and Well-Being. A lot of people don't realize that we do need good health and well-being. They know that you need to go to the doctor, you need to take care of yourself, you don't need to be sick, we don't need to get COVID. There's a lot of things we recognize, but sometimes we don't recognize the impact of stress or the impact of just daily lives have on our emotional well-being. We know we get stressed out, but we don't really sometimes recognize what happens to us long-term when we're under chronic stress. So the UN Sustainability Goal number 3. By 2030, the goal is to reduce by 1/3 premature mortality from non-communicable diseases through prevention and treatment, and to promote mental health and well-being. So you can go online. I don't think any of my links are going to work today, but you can go online and look at that. Just search Sustainable Development Goal number 3, and you will find it. Now, right now, since they started these, 2030 is our target date to do a lot of really awesome things and globally. I will state that COVID-19 has set back particularly goal number 3 because it's impacted the world, the entire globe. Everyone's dealing with this. And sometimes I think about that and it just kind of overwhelms me. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is a global event. It's not just here, it's not just me, it's not just the US, but it really is a global event, and people all over the world are trying to figure out how they can deal with COVID, the stress, the health concerns, the financial concerns. All of those impact us, and they all impact us in our mental health well-being. Slide. So target 3.4, so each goal has some targets in it. And target 3.4 is the area of emphasis on non-communicable diseases, mental health, and environmental risks. Slide. Next. Yeah. So on that, if you took that 3.4 and you recognize, you see the arrows, so it's a cycle. They all interconnect with each other, just like all of the sustainability goals. They have one thing in common, and it's human beings. And so we have to be sustainable, and we have to finish the race. And in order to do that, we have to figure out the best way to have sustainability for us, us as individuals, for us as humankind. Just we're the ones that have to take the action, and so we're the ones that have to be sustainable. Then we can replicate it in whatever goal that we're looking at. So on the target number 3.4, you see this round circle, and you see that the arrows connect. Each area connects to the other, and it's separated in 3 pies. It's physical, mental, and environmental. Next slide. So when we pull the physical out and just look at it, we're talking about non-communicable diseases. They are really talking here up until December and January, they were speaking to non-communicable diseases because it is really hard to control or to impact those diseases that are contagious, that run viral, like COVID-19. Now, this same target has COVID-19 as one of the things that we have to look at, and we have to respond to, and we have to respect that it is something that is going to sit on top of all of our goals and maybe even delay the ability of us to reach our target at 2030. So it's going to take a lot of extra help in different areas, but particularly in area number 3. So when we look at non-communicable diseases, we are actually talking about, can you go back one? Can you go back one? Okay, when we're talking about things like cardiovascular disease, you can't catch a heart attack, or we're talking about cancers, and even though some of us, kind of feel like we don't want to be around cancer, it's actually just in you. You can't, you can't catch it from somebody else. It's what's happening in your body and your cells. Chronic respiratory diseases, asthma, allergies, some of those things we hear about late night when all the lawyers are talking on TV wanting us to sign up if we have something has happened to us. Those chronic respiratory diseases are really not contagious. They are normally the result of something that has come into the lungs and have impacted the lungs in some way, and has left people with a breathing or a respiratory issue. The last one I want to talk and really talk about is about diabetes. You can't catch diabetes from somebody else. And right now, our nation alone is in an epidemic level of diabetes. And that says a lot, because what happens in our country that makes us more prone to diabetes than a lot of other countries? And we really have to look at that, because what the difference is it's really lifestyle. So if you know something about diabetes, you know that there's 2 kinds of diabetes. There's what used to be called juvenile diabetes or early onset diabetes, and that's when the pancreas just stops working. And it usually happens in childhood or early adulthood. It can happen at any point, but it is where the pancreas just stops producing insulin. This is an acute problem. It has to be dealt with insulin very quickly, and they don't really do pancreas transplants. So you're really kind of stuck in that situation, but there's actually no real way to prevent that. It just happens to people, and if it happens, it happens. But type 2 diabetes is something really different. Type 2 diabetes is a lifestyle disease. It starts when we eat more carbohydrates, we gain weight, we don't exercise, all of the things our culture does. So if you look at us, we love fast food. We love not good food. We love to sit around and play video games. A lot of us don't want to go out and exercise because it's stressful. And, there's just a lot of things that we complain about and we don't do as a culture. And we also eat a lot of high sugar, sugar-added foods. And this has been going on for quite a while, and there's a lot of politics behind that. And I encourage you to go out and look how sugar has been introduced to us and how the government and the farmers and the food producers and all of those kind of work together. I'm not saying it was intentional, but they all did things in our culture, in our laws, and our rules that kind of set us up to have type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is different from regular diabetes because we can change it. When you first get type 2 diabetes, most people can slow it down. They can actually reverse it and go into a type of remission. Now, technically, once you develop type 2 diabetes, you never don't have type 2 diabetes. You always have that condition laying basically in remission. But you might never have to deal with it with the rest of your life if you take those preventative or those steps that we can do to reverse it. And those steps are actually easy. I think I just named them. There are diet and exercise, which we hear all about, but it's true. If we eat more natural food, more organic food, less grains and wheats, those high carb things, we can do a lot for our health. And what we eat is really important because it's the fuel for our bodies. What we put into our bodies helps our immune system. It helps our brain function. It helps everything in our body. Think of a car, right? If you have a high-end car, it's going to tell you, like I have a Mini Cooper. And my Mini, much to my surprise, when I got it, I realized it wants to eat premium gas. Now, I'm used to the cheapest gas on the market. All my cars are trained from the get-go. You're going to get cheap gas. That's just the way you're going to live. But my Mini wants premium. So it gets premium. But that's because it has a lot of high-end movable parts. It has all the things that rely on a high-quality fuel to keep it functioning like a Mini Cooper should function. We are just like Mini Coopers or Ferraris. We need to treat our bodies the best that we can, put the right kind of fuel in them so that we are sustainable, so that we don't somewhere 20 or 30 years from now have the impact of what we do now can come back and impact us later and leave us, fighting some of these diseases that are not communicable. Basically, we did it to ourselves. And that's really sad. And when we think about the epidemic of diabetes in our nation, it's bad enough that it's in adults. It's really bad that it's really increasing in young adults, like from 20 to 40. But what's really concerning is that our children are in an epidemic stage of type 2 diabetes. And these are children. And if you develop type 2 diabetes when you're young, there's a good chance that you may never be able to reverse it or overcome it. It may be with you forever. Just as the weight, when children carry a lot of extra weight, and I'm talking about obesity, I'm not talking about what some of us think is overweight, I'm talking about real obesity, and we have an epidemic of obesity in our nation, particularly in our children right now, and it's going to lead them into all of these types of non-communicable diseases in our country. The rest of the world, not so much. But in our culture, it is. So I just want to really bring to bring to note how our country really needs to do more to help our country, our people, our humans be more sustainable. The probability of dying from any of the 4 main non-communicable diseases, well, in 2016, we run a couple of years later. We go out and we get all this research and all this data, and it takes us a while to crunch it down. So right now I'm working with 2016 on the screen. The probability of dying from any of the 4 non-communicable diseases between the ages of 30 and 70 were 18% in 2016. Now the risk remains remarkably higher for men globally at 21.6% compared with 15% for women. And I am going to add this. I wish I had the stats for you to share, and I will put them in the next time I do this presentation. But for people of color, it is much higher. Just like with COVID, people of color have a higher risk of catching COVID, and they also have a higher risk of getting a more complicated case or even dying from COVID. And a lot of that, I believe, and I think the research and the what's being said out there is going to support that. It's because there's a lot of social implications, but a lot of people don't have good physical conditions. And we see that diabetes is often higher in people of color or people in lower socioeconomic classes. And that's mainly because the cheap food is not so good for us. And it costs more money to eat better, and so people tend, especially if they don't have a lot of money, they don't want to starve to death, so they put their money where they can. And it's another one of these things that we need to think, because I think right now we're talking about a different sustainability goal, but it's one that's going to work together with sustainability number 3. And on the other side, I will tell you that, well, I'll get to that for here in just a second. Mental health. Mental health is not usually thought of as being intertwined. We think we have mental health, we have dental health, and we have physical health. But most of our research showing now, when you look at integrated health, most of that research says the way that we think about things, the way we manage our stress, the way our mental attitude, our mental capacities are, is going to impact our physical bodies. Now, if you have a bad back or you have bad knees or arthritis or you have something going on that's causing you pain, that's going to also impact your outlook on life. It's going to impact your anxiety or your depression. It's going to impact your mental health. So again, this is just evidence that we are just people, and we're all integrated into our mental and physical and dental, because dentists are out there on their own also. But all of these things work together inside of us, and we have to be cognizant of that if we're going to be sustainable in ourselves. Next slide. So there are some steps to take, and that's the good news. And I've just really harped on one of them, is nutrition. Eat the best you can, right? If you're on a tight budget, well, try to eat more lettuce. It's not too expensive. But try to really limit the carbs, limit the pounds and what's going into your body so that you're getting the maximum amount of nutrition for whatever you're eating. So nutrition's important. It's the fuel of our bodies. We're going to end up going through a lot of these. I'm just going to go through them very quickly right now. This, again, if you notice the arrows, they all link together. They all impact each other, and they all help us to have better health. And all of these actually not only impact our physical health, but they heavily impact our emotional health, our mental well-being. So we have nutrition, we have exercise, we have self-care. That's all of this plus we need a better response to stress, especially during COVID, because we're under a lot of stresses we didn't have a year ago. I don't think many of us were confined month after month after month, being home in a virtual world where we're with our spouses, our parents, our children, 24/7. You know, it gets old after a while, and we are social beings, so we really need social connections. And all of this just makes it more stressful to go through everyday life. It also accentuates anything that we're already dealing with in our lives. So we need to develop a better response to stress. And one of those things is where we really need to start is good sleep. Now, if you're worried and anxious, I know you might not be able to sleep. If you're a student, you've got some big, exam coming up, maybe you get a cram for it or whatever, do that 2 days before the test. You'll find you'll have better results. But it takes 2 sleep cycles to move information from short-term to long-term memory. So if you cram a lot for your test and you notice that 2 months later you don't really remember anything, that's because it got stuck in short-term memory and you were able to pull it from there because you really studied it in the night before. But if you start studying 2 nights before, you have those 2 sleep cycles and you kind of briefly review, you'll find that afterwards you're able to retain that information and access it later. So it's just food for thought for all of you students out there. But good sleep is important. And sleep hygiene, we'll talk a little bit about it in a few minutes, but it's really important. So next slide. So now we're going to pull out that mental well-being. I approached a lot of it because, again, I believe it's integrated. I believe that what we do physically impacts us emotionally or mentally and vice versa. But when we pull the mental piece out, we are now talking about depression, anxiety, substance use and abuse, 2 different things, and suicide. And what I do want to stop here and make a note is, so we're talking about my field. Mental health and well-being is my field. It's kind of like a cardiologist says, yeah, we're going to tell you how to, run those stress tests. I'll get it out in a second. So a cardiologist might tell you how to do these things and, keep your heart healthy. But on the very serious end of that cardiologist work may very well be those massive heart attacks that people get at some times, and that's part of them. They're fatal. And people don't realize that depression sometimes is fatal. It is a disease. It is a biological disease. It comes from your body. It may be impacted by your viewpoint, your thoughts, those things that are happening to you. But depression, if left untreated, can become fatal, and that's called suicide. And we want to stop that. We don't want people dying too early or dying because they have a mental health issue, a mental illness. We want to be able to cure those, be able to set them back, just like all of those other diseases. We really want to help people with depression get better and not choose suicide. or not complete a suicide, because sometimes the idea is maybe people don't have the choices that we think they do at that particular moment in time. I want to step back, and when we're talking about mental well-being, I want to go back to that stress note. So we're all, a little bit about stress, but chronic stress impacts us differently. And if we're really stressed out and we don't have a lot of solutions, we're going to get more anxious. Anxiety is kind of the next step down the rabbit hole. And if you've got a lot of anxiety and it goes on a long time, we have a physical reaction to all of that. And eventually, if we can't do anything about anxiety, it will lead us to depression. And unfortunately, some of us will end up not taking good steps. And maybe a small percentage of us will end up being a victim of suicide. And that is really, really sad. Next slide. Can we advance? Oh, thank you. Boy, it goes so fast I don't see that it's changed. So fatal thoughts addressing stress, anxiety, depression, and suicide. Progress has been made in reducing the global suicide rate from 12.9 per 100,000 in 2000 to 10.6 per 100,000 in 2016. That is really great. We are making roads. We're making inroads in mental health, mental well-being, right? And I just wanted to stop. I do have something actually from 2018. In the United States in 2018, there were 48,344 recorded suicides. Now, those are deaths that pretty much they know are suicides. It's not accounting for that gray area of people that may have completed a suicide, but there's not a lot of evidence, or it just isn't recorded that way, and that still happens a lot. So we do believe that that number is probably higher, but 48,344, that's about the same amount of daily fatalities, or daily, not fatalities, daily COVID cases that we're reporting right now. It's kind of interesting, but we have that many people complete suicides in the year 2018. According to the CDC's National Center for Health Studies, on average, adjusted for age, the annual U.S. suicide rate increased 24% between 1999 and 2014, from 10.5 to 13 suicides per 100,000, the highest rate recorded in 28 years. Anxiety and depression is at epidemic rates in our country, and it also is impacting the world. But it is impacting us. It's at epidemic rates. I'm not sure it's not pandemic, but we don't do that, right? We only study COVID right now because all the focus is on COVID. But you can learn a lot about suicide and preventing it and helping people. So next slide. I want to add about suicide. The rate of teenage suicide is growing astronomically every year. We have more teens and young adults reflecting, they're saying they're anxious, they're depressed. That rate is skyrocketing. COVID has done nothing but expand that and increase it. So we really have to look at this, because things that kill us is really important. Things that keep us from being able to be healthy, happy, and proactive and make changes in the world, they're very serious. We need to stop that and reverse that. So when we're talking about prolonged stress, eventually, if you live where you're in high stress, let's say, you've lost your job and you're worried about your rent, and now your relationships, just ongoing stress. One thing leads to another. Let's say you don't do really well in one class, and that's got you so worried you don't do well in another class, and then it's like, suddenly everything's stressed out. So stress does that. It grows and it explodes at different times. And what is the prolonged stress that we are all experiencing? I know if you're in school, you're probably thinking, it's all those, it's the impact of going virtual. Maybe you didn't have all these virtual classes. Maybe you're one of the students that do better. You're a social student. You're an extrovert, and you do much better in a in-class situation. But now all of your classes are virtual. Maybe there's just a lot of things, maybe there's just a lot of things that are going on right now with COVID that make it especially challenging